Hello, everybody. It is June the 6th, 2025. Welcome to Into the Fire. We are live coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. What a night. I've got somebody coming on here that I have been really excited about. Larry Wilcox from Chips. There he is. I grew up with this guy, and I'm like a kid in a candy store, honestly, right now. I know he gets it all the time. I know he has people that come up to him, et cetera. But it's really special to me because my dad was actually a highway patrolman in Los Angeles at the time when this guy was on TV, and his badge number is not too far off from Larry's. And so this is a big deal for me, honestly. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. The first time what happened is that he forgot. It's one of those things, and I probably should have reminded him right before that. And it happens, believe me, with a schedule like Larry's and a schedule like mine, it happens from time to time. Believe me, it's happened to me too, and I completely understood it. This guy is something else. I was giving a tour to some people that were from Kansas today, and they were telling me, they were like, man, your background, you worked in surgery and you did this and you worked in homicide and all this other stuff. Man, you've had it's an insane the amount of lives that you've lived. Well, mine pale in comparison to Larry's, believe me. So let's get right after this. I don't want to waste any of his time. I'm super stoked. I can't believe that we're sitting here live with this guy. He's really somebody special to me. So Larry Wilcox is a template for tenacity and relentless success in the film and tech business. His motto is consistent with incremental improvements for qualitative efficiency in life. He has tirelessly worked in all facets of the film business as a star in 2 TV series, the last being Chips on NBC, and for 30 years he was successful as a SAG actor, which is the Screen Actors Guild. He starred in movies with Charleton Heston, James Coburn, Lee Marvin, Farah Fawcett, Barbara Hershey, Vic Morrow, Don Murray, and others, with many credits where he also creates a new character with intriguing layers. Wilcox is also a member of the WGA and wrote for CBS and HBO. He is also a member of the DGA and directed 2 of the highest rated shows on Chips on NBC. Wilcox developed movies of the week and went on to produce projects at HBO, NBC, and Universal Pictures. He is an excellent communicator and storyteller who understands the layers of plot gridding. He is also known to be surgically precise with his negotiations and gets things done as a team player. I love that. He was the executive producer and director and creator of the TV series The Ray Bradbury Theater for HBO, Raised to the Capital, which was $23 million, and shot the series in the US, Canada, France, and the UK, as well as New Zealand, as an award-winning TV series. He produced Death of a Playmate, the Dorothy Stratten Story with Jamie Lee Curtis. He is presently developing the Pulitzer Prize-winning author Nick Kotz's book, Judgment Days, as he is the team leader in solving all such creative issues as a problem solver. And he just completed 2 scripts. And we're going to get into a lot more of this stuff. I think most importantly, the biggest thing that I'm really impressed with, and I want to thank him for his service, is the fact that he was a U.S. Marine. He was in the Marines, and he experienced Vietnam during the Tet Offensive, which was arguably one of the worst times in Vietnam. And man, he successfully worked in the trenches of almost every sector of the entertainment industry. His film credits are available upon request. I can tell you this, that I scanned through it. He's been on things like The Love Boat. Probably one of my favorites is MASH. And he actually starred, and I think his big break started out with Lassie, but he was also in Room 222 and many other shows that a lot of you are going to remember. Super cool. He's actually met a couple of different presidents. I want to mention this. Wilcox basically is a Marine Corps veteran. He served 13 months in Vietnam from 67 to 68, and in the formidable I Corps on the DMZ. He also was personally met President Ronald Reagan, President George Bush, and I think if I remember correctly, actually President Bush pinned on some medals on him when he was speaking at an engagement. So let's go ahead and bring Larry on, and anything that I didn't mention that we need to mention. This is Larry's show. This is all about Larry, and I don't know where your screen went. We've lost his picture, so hopefully Amanda might be able to help him along and tell him what's going on. But your background is black. I don't know why. You might have to hit that red X and then come right back in. Actually,
okay.
So Larry and I, to tell you the truth, we have one thing in common, and that's the fact that we're both senior citizens. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Larry and I are both we don't have a PhD in computer programming or dealing with this kind of stuff. But I'm super excited about him being here. I mean, this is really, really epic. And Amanda, you might have to give him another ring to help him get in again. But I think we're going to be good because he's got the link to get in here, etc. Just to let everybody know, I will be speaking in the near future. I'm going to be in October. I'll be in Palm Springs. That's kind of to the public. Not really to the public. That's going to be primarily law enforcement, but it's potential that you could come in there as the public. And then in addition to that, I will be speaking to the public, and that is at the U.S. Marshals Museum, November the 21st. Put it on your calendar. If you live anywhere near there and it's something that you may be interested in joining us for, then consider joining us for the U.S. Marshal Museum to check me out in person. And I sign things, and I'll visit with you, and I'll hang out as much as you want to, et cetera, stuff like that. So that darn StreamYard, here we go again. We're kind of dealing with that, but we'll get him back on here, no problem. Amanda's the best in the business at helping with these people, and hopefully we'll get there. Let's see, what else am I speaking at? I just found out that I'll be speaking in Tennessee, in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, or Gatlinburg. It's one of the two. They're both right next to each other. I'll be speaking there. It looks like I'm going to be there in November, and I'm speaking at some other areas, and I don't even remember them all off the top of my head. But it is a great pleasure to be here, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. And it happens. We got some guests and stuff. They don't have a master's degree in this kind of jazz. If there's any questions, feel free to throw them up there while we're kind of waiting to see what's going on, and I can read them, and we'll see. But he was just on here and everything was perfect, and I don't know what happened. So we'll see. We had a murder today. I think it's our 22nd or 23rd homicide. It's been solved, so everybody can relax. Everything's great. It was one of the, on the complexity scale, I'm going to give this about a 1. It was very, very non-complicated, but that's what we dealt with today. And so anyway, that's what we're doing. She thinks that it might have been about his background, but here we go. There he is. Okay. He's here. Hey, Larry, don't worry. This is not the first time that I've dealt with issues on this show. So thank you very much for being here. Trust me, it is an absolute honor to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm really, really excited. I know that there's other CHP guys from back in the day, actually, when you worked, that I have no doubt that are going to be watching you, and they're excited about it as well. And anyway, it's good to have you here. Let's start out with kind of telling me how you ended up starting out. You came from Battle Creek, Wyoming. Is that correct?
No, I came from Rawlins, Wyoming. I always make a joke. There was a little town. I used to work on the railroad as a telegrapher in little towns throughout Wyoming, and Bitter Creek was one of them. But no, I grew up in Rawlins, Wyoming, and was kind of a latchkey kid, and had a great time, raising hell and fishing and hunting and skiing and all the things you do in Wyoming, rodeo, cowboys, and so on. And then I went to the University of Wyoming and had a good time there. And the only thing wrong with Wyoming is the weather is really, tough. It's windy and blizzards in the winter. So a buddy of mine lived in Beverly Hills, and I was at the university. He said, "You ought to come to California." So I said, "No doubt, I'm out." So I moved to Beverly Hills, California, found this acting place. I started taking acting lessons, and the lady liked me because I was polite and had manners, say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and all those things you learn, and with English heritage. And so next thing I knew, she let me study for free for 2 years and got me an agent, and I was taken off. I went in the Marine Corps course, and then after that came back, and my career kind of took off because, I always looked a lot younger than I was. So I got to do series and commercials and made a lot of money and had a great time, and still wondered what in the hell, how did I get here?
Well, one of the things that you talked, you when you were in Wyoming, you were working on, was it you working on the railroad, or you were doing something that I thought was really fascinating, because that sounded like somewhat of a scary or a lonely job anyway.
Yeah.
It had something.
What was that about? Well, that was when I went to California. There was a death in my family, and my sister was murdered by her husband in front of my mom and her 3 children. And so I was at the little school called Pierce College then, and where all the most beautiful girls from Southern California were at, And so they called me out of my class and said, hey, you have to come out to talk to the president or the principal of the school. And I said, okay. And I went out, and he told me I have to make a collect call for an emergency. And I said, okay. And I went over to this payphone. I still didn't know what was going on. And then I made the call and talked to my relatives, and they told me the bad news about my sister and everything. And so I went back to Wyoming to help my mom, and got a job at the Union Pacific Railroad and made good money. I mean, they paid a lot of money for a kid in Wyoming. And I was a telegrapher, so I would hand up messages to the engineer in the front engine, and the rear brakeman, or the guy in the caboose, and at the end of the train. And that would be you'd have this kind of forked thing with a string across it, and the message is tied to the string, and you'd measure from the rail track the length of your little device that you're going to hand up this message with. And the reason you measure that distance is you need to be far away from enough distance away from the track for hot wires. Hot wires are when you see a freight train coming down the track, and you'll see way down the track of sparking. Well, that means one of those big aluminum wires have come loose on a load of lumber, and it's hitting the rails as it's coming down. But the negative is it's going to decapitate you if you're standing there. So I would be in the middle of a 4-foot snowstorm and handing up these messages, and the engineers and the rear brakemen get really pissed off when you miss them because they got to stop the train by law. You can't radio them. You can't talk to them on a walkie-talkie. They have to walk back, which is a couple miles, through drifts of snow to get the message, and then they want to literally beat you up. And then they can go on, because that message will say you have to switch tracks at Y number 10 and take the Y7 so you don't have a head-on collision with a freight train coming from the opposite direction. Well, lo and behold, I would be stationed in the worst places in Wyoming, little teeny towns with 25 people. And, a shack here and a shack there in this middle of the snowstorm. And I would sleep in this little shed with a coal stove and a sleeping bag on the floor with the mice scurrying around and rats. And, I'd have to make my own meals because there's really no restaurant there or whatever, right? And it was lonely, man, but I made good money. So when I came back into town, I could have a good time.
Yeah. Well, what was good money back then? Well, I mean, do you even remember what you were making to do that? Because you were out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. No, I don't remember. But to give you a gauge, after that, like 2 or 3 years after that, I got a job in construction, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven. And I got $4.54 an hour as a laborer.
Okay.
So digging ditches and running jackhammers, but I thought, this is great, man. You know, I'm in the union. And
so you went off to Vietnam from that point, and so then you went to Vietnam after the railroad?
Yeah. So what happened is, you know, I was helping my mom, and then I got drafted, and my brother had been in the Marine Corps, and so I said, I'm not going in the Army. That's humbling. I'm going to go if I'm going to war, I'm going to go to the best outfit in the world, right? So I joined the Marine Corps, and I got, you know, you get 5.0s, the best you can get in boot camp. Boot camp's really, really hard in the Marine Corps, and they beat on you and hit you and slap you and do some really humiliating stuff to you. I mean, you want to get in a fight every single day, but you know better, right? But they'd have us swimming in the mud and calling us pigs and losers and all that stuff, right? And some guys would start crying and break down, and that's all they're trying to do is break you down. They take you to lunch to eat, and then you have to salute in the morning with your arm just perfect and parallel to the deck, right? And your thumb can never be out, has to be in perfect, right?
Yeah.
And if it's out, then they take your thumb and they open the M14 and put your thumb in there, let the chamber go home, and oh my goodness, it cuts your thumb open and it blows up with blood, you know. And they just messed with you. They'd hit you in the eye when you'd say, they'd ask you what you want to do. Sir, I have to go to the head or the restroom. Right? Which eye? Sir, which eye? And they start making you hit yourself in your own eye, you know. And it was nuts. But anyway, I did really well. So I got out of the 5.0, I got 4.9 marks. And then I was picked to go to officer candidate school. And so they said, just sign this contract, you become an officer, and you'll go to Quantico, Virginia, and you go through officer training school. And I said, oh, okay. And I didn't really understand. I was such a hick, the differentiation between enlisted and officers. And so I said, what does that entail? And they said, oh, not much. You just sign this contract, then you commit to 6 years in the Marine Corps after you graduate as an officer. So, no way, I'm out of here, dude. I'm doing 3 years and out of here, right? So they said, okay, well, you passed the language school, so you're going to language school. And up at Fort Ord, you're going to be the only Marine with all the Army guys. So, be proud and show us proud, right? So then they lost my orders and said, oh, well, you're going to go to jungle training because we can't find your orders, but don't worry, we'll find your orders, and you'll go to, next thing I knew, I'm in Vietnam. Well, I went to Okinawa, and then from Okinawa to Vietnam, and I'm sitting in Da Nang, Vietnam, in the I Corps, and in this red dirt, hot as hell, and I'm seeing Marines all bandaged up and getting off C-130 airplanes and so on. And they're all saying, hey, newbie cherries, what's your MOS? And mine was 0844, which is Forward Observer, Fire Direction Control and Survey Officer, meaning I would run a theodolite, T-16 theodolite and survey for a fire base. Yeah, I did those three things. And so when you say FO, they say, oh, yeah, your lifespan's is 16 seconds, dude, so good luck. I mean, really great welcoming, right? And so I'm reading Life magazine. On the front of Life magazine is about 9th Marines and up on Contien, which is right on the DMZ, and getting their butts kicked and bombed every day, and mortars and rockets every single day. They're like literally you can just see across the DMZ. And so they call your name Wilcox, and they read my serial number and Contien. I almost start crying, man, like, oh my God, I'm going to Contien of all places. So I went first to Dong Ha. We get Dong Ha. There's two parts of Dong Ha. Dong Ha, where we landed a C-130 on this rough old kind of dirt runway with some steel here and there, graded runway of sorts. And we get off, and we don't have our guns yet, our weapons, or anything. Flak jackets, helmets, nothing, right? Jungle boots, nothing. Get in the back of the PC, and the guy says, keep your heads down because we're going to get sniper fire from here to where we're going to take you to your next base, right? I'm thinking, damn. So they're just screwing with us, of course. And so we go up Route 9 or whatever it was, and we go to this other place that was kind of Dongha forward. And it's an artillery base. And so I go there, and they say, hey, welcome to the Marine headquarters base up here. Small artillery base. We have 0555 howitzers and 105 howitzers, self-propelled. And this Major McFarland was from Wyoming, of all places, and coincidence, and asked me, how in the hell did you get these high marks out of the boot camp? I don't know. So what do you mean you don't know? I've been here in the Marine Corps for years and years and years. I've never seen 4.9 out of 5. What'd you do that was so great? I don't know. I was just a kid from Wyoming that played sports and thought he was tough, right? But I was just a kind of a young punk having a good time.
Yeah.
And then later on, I thought about it. What I did is I think I was the guide of the platoon, which is the leader of my platoon, 70 guys, right? And I would talk to all the guys. This is a good lesson in leadership. I would always talk to my guys and say, look, this is a bunch of bullshit. What we're going through, they're going to mess with our heads every day. They're going to smack you in your trachea and hit you on the end of your chin and the back of your head with their knuckles. And you can't smack them back. So you got to create this comedy in your mind with all these drill instructors, which every one of them is going to be a jackass to see who's a loser and who's a winner. Yeah. So here's the game. When I walk around as the guide of the platoon, I'm going to punch one or two of you in the stomach, but we're going to show them what good actors you are. So I want you to go, oh, and go in like I really hit you hard. So I'll pull my punch. It's going to be a little wimpy punch, but they're not going to know the difference. So It's going to look like I'm telling you guys what to do and what not to do, right? And so we had to memorize all this stuff all the time about every weapon and all this other stuff. And we had to repeat it. So when you have 70 guys repeating it, it sounds like a really loud, bellowing guys yelling this command of someone. And we would just do it kind of soft until one guy I assigned, when the drill instructor steps out of the mess hall, we increase our volume by orders of magnitude. Really, really loud, right? Sounds like we're the baddest asses on the parade deck, right? And so I'd have them all, man, we'd be screaming so loud, and the drill instructor's coming, man, this guide of the platoon, Wilcox, he's got his act together, right? Yeah. So anyway, I went through boot camp, and I won all my fights, and hand to hand and pogo sticks and all that stuff. But one thing I screwed up was and I would get up at midnight and practice putting my sling on, so it's so tight that you could hardly move your arm. And we shot the weapon to 500 yards. That's a long ways to see a target with a peep sight. No scope, nothing, a peep sight in an M14, right? And then later M16. And so, every Marine has to be a really good marksman. That's their pride, So even though I was really, really good in everything I did, and my brother told me, when you go in, if they offer a test, take every test you can, because that test will elevate you and your capability. I had some college, but hadn't graduated yet. But in marksmanship, I didn't get expert. I got marksman, which is still good, but not great. Right. And it really made them mad that I didn't get, expert. So they made me. I would have won the dress blues as the best Marine in this platoon of 70 guys, but because I didn't shoot expert, I didn't get it. But I still got 4.9s, and I think back, when the major asked me why I got such high marks, I think because I was a good actor. That's why. Yeah.
Hey, did you ever go back to Vietnam to visit?
No, never did. And I don't really want to, I mean, people that did go back said that, they didn't recognize it and so on. And
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of all these podcasts called Mac v. SOG. And it's not the MARSOC or the Marine Special Forces Force Recon. It's about Army Green Berets. And just to be real quick, so I don't go off on a tangent, it's a wonderful story. But Mac v. SOG to me were the baddest asses in Vietnam. And when I started reading their books and all the stuff they did, I felt like a Cub Scout. As a Marine, right? And we went to every hot LZ, and we inserted and extracted, and we did some pretty crazy stuff. We rescued Force Recon a couple times and so on. But Mac v. SOG were 2 Americans and 4 indigenous, Vietnamese or Montyards or whatever. And they would take these 4 to 6 guys or sometimes 8 guys, and when they got to Vietnam, they asked these Green Berets, hey, you've done all this training. You went through jump school. You went through ranger school. You became a Green Beret, which takes forever. And after all these years of training, welcome to Vietnam, and we're proud of you. But you have one more chance to volunteer if you want. And they said, what's that? And they said, Mac v. SOG. And they said, what's that? Well, don't ask. But if you raise your hand, casualty rates 80 to 100%.
Ooh.
So do you still? And so these guys, of course, all raise their hand. That's why they're Green Berets, right? Or Marines, but in this case, Green Berets. And they volunteer, and they would take those 6 guys, and they were in what was called the Secret War in Vietnam. They never were fought in Vietnam. They fought in all the countries that we weren't supposed to be in, that we said we were not in, like Laos and Cambodia and North Vietnam. And they would insert them at middle of night or whenever, right? Go by strings. They'd have to go down ladders or rappel into a triple canopy jungle, and they'd leave them to gather intel. And every mission, they were surrounded by 1,000 guys or some ridiculous number where they're going to get overrun. They'd have claymores all around them and toe poppers and all this layers of defensive bombs. And then they'd be running like hell, calling in F-4s and bombers to get a division or a battalion of North Vietnamese screaming and yelling at port arms with PIF helmets coming to kill you, right? And just crazy, crazy stuff. So after reading their stuff and after my experiences, I don't need to go to Vietnam again.
Yeah, my dad didn't enjoy it either. He was 101st Airborne. He actually lied about his age, and he was 16. And when his parents found that he just enlisted, actually he tried to go to the Marines, but he was too short, I think is what he took. And so he goes next door to the Army. And his parents were furious. And so he was 16 years old. He ended up going over there, 101st Airborne. And now he was there the same time you were, Larry, 67 to 69. But he said it was the really rough time. So you end up coming out of that. You come home. Is that when you started doing the acting journey? And then so you go there and kind of tell us a little bit of how that, I mean, you obviously you showed some serious, natural ability, I'm sure, to do that. And then they started getting you in some commercials. Is that how it started?
Yeah. So I came back to California and actually I landed in Rawlins, Wyoming, and took the bus I landed in Denver because no planes fly to Rawlins, Wyoming, and then took the bus of all things to a Greyhound bus to Rawlins, Wyoming, had my Marine Corps dress greens uniform on and my sea bag, and I'm walking down the street in December and crunchy snow, and some guys come and pick me up, and we go to the local bar and have a great time and celebrate. That was my first day back. But subsequent to that, then I went to California, and then I started studying both medicine for pre-med and acting, which is kind of a weird combination. And but I took my chemistry and biology and physics and all those classes in college, and and languages and French. I always liked French. And I ended up, just looking like boy next door. So yeah, I was comfortable doing all this stuff. And I didn't have really an ego. It was just playing house, basically. It was fun, Yeah. And going to acting classes is, when you're a young man, it's a dream come true because all the pretty girls are in acting classes, and but you learn through life that those pretty girls are probably the ones you don't want to marry, But anyway, I'm in there in those acting classes and did a lot of commercials, and then I started doing Lassie, and they just loved me on Lassie because I was so dumb. I did all my own stunts, and they would say, Larry, do you mind getting on that train up on top of the hill, and then you'll be pushing this lever up and down as it comes down the hill, and then when you get to the bottom of the hill, jump off into this sand area. It won't be that hard. And yeah, okay, I'll do that. So I did all my own stunts, falling through floors, bucked off horses, riding Brahma bulls, you name it, right? And never got any extra pay, but I was so happy. I was starring in a television series. I called my brother Randy and said, Rands, hey, guess what I'm doing? He said, what? I said, dude, I'm starring in a television series. He said, no, you're not. What's the name of it? I said, Lassie. Oh, dude, the dog's a star, not you, Oh, yeah, you're probably right. But anyway, I did that for 3 years. And Jack Rather was from Texas, and he owned Disneyland Hotel and a bunch of famous buildings in Los Angeles. And he wrote a letter for me to get into med school at the University of Texas, Houston. And then I had another associate write me a letter for dental school, which I would have been the worst dentist in the world. I have the manual dexterity of a frog. Can't carve anything. Penmanship's terrible, just not. I should have known that my spatial knowledge is none. I just don't have it. And I can't recognize 3D pictures. They say, here's a 3D blueprint. It means nothing to me, right? And so anyway, luckily I got to be an actor. And from then on, I just took off, and I did guest stars on every television show and made lots of money and had a great time. Met a lot of great people, a lot of movie stars that were really nice and always telling me, you're going to be a big star, kid. You're going to be a big star, whatever that means. That means you're going to be the flavor of the month for a few years. So get over it.
which, and then from there, then after doing all these little spots on all these TV shows, Room 222 and many, many others. And so when you did that, how did Chips come about?
So I had done a guest star on Hawaii Five-0, and this producer saw me, named Rick Rosner, and he asked me to star in a new television series pilot called Aero Bureau. And that was about helicopter sheriffs that fly helicopters. And it was myself and Dandy Don Meredith was the co-star with me. And he was just the best guy in the world. He and I had the best time. He always called me, kid, come on, kid, let's go have a margarita, right? He always wanted to go have a margarita. He was funny. And but that didn't sell. We did the pilot, and they paid us great money. And then, so now he comes back to me a year later and wants me just. And by then I'm doing a lot of stuff, and I'm getting a lot of recognition, and people are saying, this kid's really going to be a major star, and all this crap that people say in Hollywood, right? And you got to be careful, because if you start believing it, you'll start thinking you're gone with the wind or something. But so he asked me to star in this new series called Chips, and I said, no, I'm an actor. I've studied with all these people now, and I'm like, I do Shakespeare and I do all this. And I wasn't going to do Chips. And like all prostitutes, when they figure out how much you cost, they bought me, right? Yeah. So I ended up starring in Chips, thinking it was way beneath my pay grade and my talent level. And but luckily I did it, because, there was good and bad about doing Chips. The good part was it became a famous series, a successful series over time. and it was syndicated in over 100 foreign countries. So all over the world, we were in somebody's living room weekly, and so from a marketing and branding standpoint, we got pretty famous. Eric became the more famous one because he's kind of the pretty Latin boy, and I was kind of boy next door, solid American boy, right? And I always said that, my character had a lot of substance and came from Vietnam and Wyoming and had a lot of things in his life, but the writers wrote nothing for my character. And to me, that was the worst and most difficult character I ever had in all my acting jobs, because there was nothing for me to do and except admire my idol, Ponch, which was bullshit. So like, really, dude, you can admire him singing Celebration on the stage, and doing his thing. This is really stupid.
Well, Larry, let's take a quick second.
Yeah.
And Amanda, throw up the intro to Chips to remind our viewers as to what the show is all about. So when that comes on, believe me, in my house, in our apartment, we lived in Sherman Oaks and we lived in Santa Monica, but in Sherman Oaks, I remember, man, I was glued to that television set because my dad, he worked out of West LA. So every time he would go to work and stuff, I believe me, there was a few times I got to go to West LA division and so forth. And I was looking for, where are you guys? And there were times when I'd actually see the interstate. Yeah, I could see there was something going on. And I think we'll get to that as far as the interstates, but believe me, I've seen them all. And I want to give a shout out real quick, Amanda, to Will Reyes, who actually works out of Central Division right now, that picture with the commissioner. And so I'm going to try to get him to get me one of these coins, the one with the Olympic stuff on there, because of your wife, who was an Olympian.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing as well. So you get started there. Will Reyes, thanks for your service in the concrete jungle, as they call it. So you started out there, and you started on the series. And basically, how was that when you first, you show up on the set and you're wearing the uniform, which that's gotta feel kind of cool to wear the uniform, really, and to feel like you're kind of one of them.
Yeah. No. It was, first of all, the uniforms were so hot because, you have those long pants and it's 110 degrees and you have the boots on. And so it became, when you came back at the end of a day or evening, when you finally get to take your uniform off, it's like really grateful to take it off, to be honest with you. But yeah, it was a uniform that you wear with pride. And recently I had to ride the motorcycle in a parade, and the commissioner of the Highway Patrol that you just showed the picture with, Will Reyes, he's a great guy, the commissioner. He was a motor cop, by the way, too. And
really?
So first commissioner to actually be a motor cop. But so I had to ride the motor. My wife says, you better go practice, because if you wreck that thing in front of a parade, it's going to be bad. No, I won't wreck it. So anyway, I had a good time, and we enjoyed shooting, Chips. We got ride motorcycles every day and jet skis and horses and rodeos and got paid, and pretty girls on the set every day. And it was a wonderful time in the 80s and 70s.
So when you started out on it, was it pretty much, and I know that you talk about it in other times and stuff, where when you first started, to me, you were, and I'm not just saying this because you're on here, because if Eric Estrada was on here, I would say the same thing. To me, you were my favorite because I thought you brought like maturity to the episodes, and you kind of didn't really screw up, and you were just really the person of reason, so to speak. So when you first started, the first season wasn't necessarily a success. Is that correct?
Excuse me. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So we, in the beginning, we didn't know what even all the things that they go through, the Nielsen ratings, and whether we were successful or not. But as a result, they let us go a little longer. It got a little better here and there, but I think the second year and third year got pretty successful. Excuse me. And so, we would go and sign autographs the second and third years, and they'd say, you have to come and sign autographs. This is how stupid we were. You have to go sign autographs, and you're going to fly to Chicago or New York City, and you're going to go to this car show. And I said, yeah, and what did they do? Well, they'll give you $10,000 a day, and they sell all your pictures there, and you sign it, and people stand in line to buy your picture and get an autograph. I said, oh, dude, that's embarrassing. I'm not doing that. And they said, what do you mean? I said, you're going to sell your own photos? I'm like, that's really pompous. I mean, I can't believe it. And so anyway, excuse me, we did that, and there'd be lines outside the building in a storm and wrapped around the building to come in and get our autographs and stuff. So Eric and I would go home with cigar boxes full of cash, notwithstanding the money that we're going to get paid by the promoters of the show and so on. And, very soon we realized, wow, this show is really popular. We didn't realize how much power there is in television.
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
To go out and come back in. Is that okay?
Oh, good. Yeah, I would love it. Yeah, please do. So while he's coming out, his screen got frozen. So Larry's going to jump out and he's going to come back in. Will Reyes, I got to mention you again, buddy. He's my friend, and he works out of the Central Division in Los Angeles. And he is kind enough. He sent me all these kinds of coins and so forth. And the reason why I was maybe Ray, you can hook him up with. I hate to ask you, but maybe one of these, because his wife was in the Olympics, and I'm sure if anybody could, it'll be Will Reyes. But he's my buddy. He works out of the Central Division, and like I said, at that time in my life, there was 3 television channels, and when Chips came on, my dad actually wasn't a big fan of it, but that's just the way it goes. There's another person that was a highway patrolman in my family as well, and that was Doug Burrows. I think I can't remember his first name, but it's one of my cousin's grandfathers. He was actually a highway patrolman and a motor cop that worked in the San Francisco area. And so, and I know I think it was up near the Golden Gate Bridge is where he kind of worked and stuff. So, all right, he's back. Bring him back. That's great. Thanks, Larry. Sorry about that. Sometimes we get these issues. I don't know what's up. I was telling them about how there was 3 channels on television. And so as far as today, I've been on television for 11 years, Larry, but it's the thing that's different is how many hundreds of channels are there today? And for you guys, there's 3. And so people, you got introduced to the world, and your life must have changed. I know Lassie put you on the map, and I know that was super popular, but man, I think Chips was on a whole nother level. I'm thinking, right? Well, his audio is not working for right now. So hang on a minute. You may need to come back out, jump out and come back in one more time. I don't know why it's not, and test the audio. But from back then, I'll tell you what, hang on a minute. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
All right.
It was my fault. Sorry. Yeah. So, there were, only 3 stations, and the Nielsen ratings in those days were off the charts. So we were, it was a big thing, a big fish in a little pond.
Yeah, for sure. So when you get out there and you start doing this television series and stuff, and after the season 1, your popularity is going through the roof. Were you starting to experience that you just couldn't go out and go to the store, and anytime you go to a gas station, etc.?
Yeah, everywhere you went, it was people began to kind of notice and act like they didn't notice, and then it kind of snowballs, and pretty soon you're signing 15 autographs when you just wanted to get a carton of milk. So, but there's good and bad about it. You can leverage it if you do it graciously in business. So, negotiating deals, getting to the principal of a company that other people can't get to. There are a lot of things that it gives you power. But, when an actor starts saying, you know who I am, that's a good time to kick him in the ass and tell him to get out, because it's like, who cares who you are?
So when you first started with Eric Estrada, and I would assume you still do the Comic-Con thing, and you go, and when you go around, do you stay in touch with most of the people that were in the show? Robert Pine and all those. So that's good. And so when you're doing that, at what point, when you first started with Eric, were you guys pretty tight when you started, and then you were just kind of, what was kind of happening at that point with your relationship? Well,
it was probably a combination of parameters. That first they asked me, they signed me to the deal and said, will you help us pick the other actor to work with you? I said, yeah. I actually picked a different guy than Eric. And, but anyway, Eric was a good choice in retrospect, obviously. And, having a white blonde haired guy and a Latin dark haired guy was a good mix, buddy series and so on. And so we got along in the beginning, but I think there was a combination of young egos of two males, right? And then what becomes really delicate for producers, writers, the crew, the public relation, the publicist, and so on, how they walk a tightrope. And that is when Joe Blow, let's say when Eric gets invited to the Johnny Carson show, does Larry Wilcox get invited? Do they do them both together, or do they only invite Eric, right?
Yeah.
And so it gets really rude, dicey, and apathetic, and so when you start mixing that with the fact that they weren't writing my character, and I go to the guys and say, you got to write this character something. I'm doing everything I can to love on Eric on camera and to be his best buddy and to be his mentor and show him leadership skills and, lead from behind, if you will. It doesn't matter whether you're in front or behind. But know that, I'm confident enough that I have my act together and I don't need any lipstick to define myself. And his character is more about being a showboat and presenting and being a screw up, and but he was kind of the Fonzie character on Chips, if you will, the one that attracted more attention. I often said that my demographic and psychographic, they wanted to marry John Baker. Eric's demographic and psychographic wanted to have an affair with Ponce, right? So it was that was the differentiator. But so over time, we started getting hostile, and he started demand. I got paid more money and got better billing, the first billing card and all that stuff. And so then he began negotiating for that, and it got to be kind of a hassle because he was arguing about he should have this and he should have that. And in retrospect, he's right. He should have. It's part of negotiation, right? But when you're young and, from Wyoming and out of the Marine Corps, you aren't very deep in life. And your lack of depth is, a lack of diplomacy. Cowboys in Wyoming, we settle things behind the barn. And that's not good, but that's kind of was my mentality. And as a Marine, I was gruff sometimes because Marines bark. And so, I'd bark at him, and I was willing to show him the hard way what's going to happen, right? And that kind of caused more confusion. And then Eric had an accident on his motorcycle, and a fatal accident, literally. And so they called me in my motorhome and said, hey, Eric's out there really bad on the motorcycle. And so I ran out there, and he had high-sided on the motorcycle. So it's kind of a no-no when you grab the front brake and the rear brake, and you got both brakes. But when you go down, what happens is you go down in the bike, and then it comes back up and flips you, and then follows you and smashes you wherever you're at. So it smashed him into the camera car, hit him in the chest, broke his sternum, broke his ribs, punctured his lungs, and ruptured his aorta.
Wow. So
when I go out there, I felt like I was in Vietnam again, because this guy's dying. And I can see, I always say death has a weird look to it. And the first look of death to me is always willpower's gone. So people lose their willpower to hang on, they kind of submit, and you can't submit. And so I gave him first aid and treated him for shock, and, screaming at him to pay attention to me like a Marine, right? And hang in there. And so they took him to the hospital, and I went to the hospital, and the priest there was in there, gave him last rites, and said, he's going to die. And his aorta's bleeding, probably, we think, and we're not 100% sure. But in those days, we're going to have to fly him to Houston, because the only place doing open heart surgery was Houston with pigs. And so I said, man, so make a long story short, they shipped him to UCLA, and 6, 7, 8 weeks later, he lived by miracle, and he never had open heart surgery. So after that, he came back, and we kind of got along when he came back, because, in a way I saved his life, right? Or he always says I saved his life, but I just gave him first aid, basically. And,
what season did that happen in, if you remember?
I don't remember, but I would say 4th or 5th. And,
okay.
Yeah, because I did 5 seasons, not the show went 6 seasons. But anyway, we didn't get along so well then. And then he did another wreck on a motorcycle, which to me was staged. But anyway, he did a wreck, and then he sued MGM and NBC. And he came back to the show. His replacement while he was in the hospital was Bruce Jenner, and presently Caitlyn Jenner. And Bruce was a great guy. I liked him. He was an athlete, Olympian. My wife was a track and field athlete, and Bruce and I raced go-karts and off-road trucks and cars. And so we had a great time,
Yeah.
And but then they let Bruce go. And then they brought Eric back, and then he sued everyone. And so then I'm getting ready to do a personal appearance in Brazil. And so they're flying myself and anybody I want to take. So I took a couple stuntmen to party with, and my attorney. And we go to Brazil and Rio de Janeiro to have a great time and wild time. We did it all. And we had the whole hotel floor where we were at. And they had a whole bar there set up for us. Champagne, you drink a bottle, they bring another one. Everything was for free, right? And so we had a good time in Brazil. And when I got ready to leave on the plane, my agent calls me and says, well, they're not going to bring you back to CHIPS. What? After 5 years, they're not going to bring me back? And they said, yeah, they're just going to go with Eric. And so I didn't know at that time, but later, much later, I had lunch with the producer, Cy Shermack. And Cy Shermack says, I said, I'm going to write this new series. And bring Eric back. And so I said, why would you want to bring Eric back? And I stared at him and said, what? He said, what? Are you serious? You want to bring Eric back? I said, yeah, I don't have any problem with him. It's just, dude, I was in the meeting. I said, what meeting? This is how naive I was. He says, at NBC, Eric had you fired. You saved his life and he had you fired. And I says, oh my goodness. I didn't know Eric had me fired. So anyway, without wallowing in my misery for about a year and a half, I was pissed off. And if I ever ran into Eric, I was going to show him that he's a little boy and I'm going to hurt him. And so a year and a half later goes by, and all of a sudden, they say a male doesn't mature till he's 28 with his frontal cortex. I think for me, it was like 40 or something, some late year, right, where I started to mature. And I realized, dude, are you such a punk that you're going to beat someone up over this and your ego? And oh my God, quit wallowing in your misery. Get over it. And so I decided we were going to do it. They had us going to do a Comic-Con. And I said to myself, you better love on that guy. You love on him and you love him and show him that you're not phony. Don't do the fake love and patronize him and then just throw spears at his back while he's not there. You love on him with genuine, authentic Larry. And that's what I did. And ever since then, we've been best friends and had a great time. So
I love that, man. I think there's a lot of lesson there. It's a good lesson for anybody that's watching this. And I don't blame you for being really upset. I can't even imagine your whole life changed overnight because of that, I'm sure. And did your acting, did you continue to act when you, well, just for an example, the people that they replaced you with, it wasn't the same. And that probably was the demise of the show ultimately. That's what I would think for sure.
Yeah, I think so, but I mean, in all due respect to those people,
yeah, it's not their fault, but
Bruce Penhall, Bruce Penhall's a good guy.
Yeah.
And he was a handsome young guy, world champion motorcycle racer, flat track. And, but he wasn't an actor. And, but, sometimes in the 70s and 80s, they used to always cast pretty boys instead of actors, And, but with OJT on the job training over time, you can become semi-competent as an actor. And so those guys that hadn't studied acting and so on, they eventually got by, we'll call it that, right? Even though some of them were stars of television series and weren't worth a damn. But I think that what happened is the 6th year, they just patronized Eric with his lawsuit, and they were able to syndicate the show thereafter. Excuse me. And so Eric and I made good money from all that syndication, and now just to show you reciprocity, because, as my wife always says, good behavior begets good behaviors, and good karma begets good karma. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to walk around and mope, don't expect too many people to hang around you because you're a downer.
Yeah, right.
And so she's right. And so Eric and I have a great time now together. And to be honest with you, it's pretty humbling at times for me, because I answer your question about acting in a minute. And I did do a bunch of movies. There were quite a few movies of the week and starred in them all, and I was the lead actor. And so it looked like my career was continuing, and it wasn't, but I thought it was, right? And and they were good roles and good acting roles. But now if Eric and I are at a Comic-Con, people recognize him immediately because he has very definable look, and he's kind of like the Fonz. Even today, you recognize Henry Winkler. And so even with his white hair, right, he doesn't have the swag but that he used to have, but he's a good guy. And so is Eric. And so Eric always invites me to things that I'm not invited to, and I make a bunch of money because of him.
Well, that's good.
So
that's really good.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and everyone should think positive of him.
A couple of things that I'm interested in. So number one, and I've heard this and I don't know the answer, but they issued you that badge number of 8712. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Nobody else has had that. That's a one-time only deal. And at CHP, they issue a number. They don't reuse numbers. That's your number forever. So that's kind of cool that you have that number. And so that's true. And then some interesting things I just want to mention that I've heard you talk about before. Did you have a motorcycle license, or did Eric have a motorcycle license? Anyone? I mean, just to even ride a bike.
No, I'd always ridden motorcycles, but in Wyoming, and horses, but we never had a license, either one of us. And I didn't think about it. And then one day I was the spokesman, the national spokesman for the Motorcycle Safety Foundation, right? And one day I was thinking, dude, this is kind of big because you're going to be all over the United States talking safety, and you're the idiot that doesn't even have a driver's license, for motorcycles. That's not cool.
Yeah.
So I went down, and when I finally got my driver's license was way after CHIPS. And I finally got it because I was doing personal appearances, and sometimes they want me to ride and so on. So I went and got my driver's license, and I had to ride a little moped or Vespa or something because I sold all my motorcycles. I had a bunch, but they're all gone. So, I finally got it. And my badge on my website at larrywilcox.net, I sell my badge and my collectible coins and my Marine Corps coin, my CHIPS coin, and my photo ID and memorabilia. My helmet was 7 Mary 3, the exact helmet that we wore on CHIPS. Some idiots are selling different stuff on eBay and some, but it's fake and it's not the real stuff. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So if you're wanting something that's legit, what does 7 Mary 3 stand for? Because designators stand for something. Do you remember what the reasoning behind that?
Excuse me. I may be wrong, but I think it means, some of the real motor officers are probably going to get mad at me. I might do it wrong. But anyway, we were at Central at that time, Central downtown LA. So 7, my understand was 7 was from Central, M was for motors, and 3 was certain area on the freeway that you were going to be assigned to that day. So,
yeah. I think Will told me they were up in like the 60s or something, and I don't know. I'm not he mentioned something to me because I was asking him about, do they still have a 7 Mary 3 and who does it? Were you modeled after another cop? Were you and Eric actually, was there a cop that was kind of an inspiration for you guys, or they wanted you to be like that guy?
Yeah, there was a couple guys. I can't remember their name, like Bruce. Bruce was a tall, lanky motorcycle training guy, and if you mess with him, he'd choke you out. And then there was Bob. Oh darn! What was Bob's last name? He was a self-defense instructor, and both of those guys, and Bob Wilson also was the motorcycle training guy that we had to go through CHP motor training with, and we had to learn how to do high-speed braking where the rear end comes around and says hello. And learn to do figure eights in a little small tiny area, clutch brake balancing and all that stuff like motorcycle rodeos teach you how to do. And we got pretty good. We were cocky, and we did all of our own riding except the stunts. All the close-ups, we were on trailers so they could hold focus and record our voices, because when we're riding the motorcycles, they couldn't hear our voices, and it was a problem. Sometimes people would see us on the trailer and give us the finger or thumbs down, right? Like we weren't really the guys, right? But we rode all the time, and we were really quite good at it. And but you ride every day, 8-10 hours a day. Pretty soon you get talented, you get competent.
Yeah. Now, when you were doing that, basically, you said something about syndication, et cetera. When you hear the stories about actors from like the Brady Bunch and that they don't get paid for any of those episodes at this point. Do you still get paid?
Yeah.
In essence, you do for basically the reruns and all this, that, and the other, which is great. So
every week I get a check,
Wow.
But it'll be some small check now, because when you've rerun chips so many times, it works on a de minimis level. So at some point in time, you're making $12 or something,
Oh, really? Really?
Instead of $1,200. Yeah. So
Wow.
now all my residuals now are, I call it dog food money.
So basically, there's stuff on his website that you could check out, which is pretty awesome stuff on there. That's really neat memorabilia, actually, at LarryWilcox.net. So you should check that out just to see what he's got on there, and also Comic-Cons. I mean, you're still going out and you're doing Comic-Cons with regularity. I think I read somewhere or I heard somewhere. How often do you go? Is that a pretty regular thing for you?
Yeah, we usually do Comic-Cons or car shows, auto car shows, minimum of one a month usually. And Calvin Spiker represents me, and he puts them on. He books them, really, our agent and manager. And car shows are great because, they pay you a fee just to come. And then you get to sell all your memorabilia and all your autographs, and you get all that in cash. And so it's a good moneymaker. I mean, big time moneymaker. Yeah. And some people have made in a weekend at a Comic-Con $60,000 to $100,000 for a few hours a day.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
That's great. And I'm sure people are swarming the booth that you and Eric are at. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, they're busy. And what's swarming, excuse me for interrupting you.
No, please.
Most of the people are older, obviously, because younger people don't know what chips are, right? Or if they do, their dad's a cop. And most of our people that come up and say, "My God, I can't believe you're here. I became a cop because of you," and they're all policemen. So, it makes you feel really good. And it also makes you feel good to meet people in the airport, and they're so excited to meet Ponch and John and see Ponch and John together still, and still doing personal appearances together, and their family just loves on you. And it's like they remember sitting with their grandma or their grandpa having dinner and watching chips, and they just love it, so it's great.
Yeah. And it was really good. I mean, I know it was a little hokey at times, but that there's cars that aren't jumping every time you turn around. But the fact of the matter is that the kind of an interesting little side note is, how many times did guns get drawn in all of the episodes?
Yeah, we only once. And the show producers didn't want any violence or any guns, which it's kind of, when you look at chips today, we all know that it's yesteryear show, right? But I called my wife in one day. I said, "Hey, you want to see the hunk? Here, come here. Let me show you here." I was joking with my wife, right? And she came in and watched it for 30 seconds. Says, "That's a dorky show if I've ever seen one," right? But so, back in the day, it was fun. But things have changed, obviously. And we had a great career.
Of course, your kids... I'm sure you showed it to your kids. I'm sure that at some point in time, you probably tried to show it to your grandkids. Did they watch them? And what was their thoughts?
No, they don't. My kids, they never really watched them. One of my sons was a guest on one show. He was in Screen Actors Guild, so he played I had to go and tell a lady that her husband and the little boy's father just got killed in a car accident, and that little boy was my son, right, in real life. And so he got to do that. It was fun. I did a movie called The Last Ride of the Dalton Gangs, where I went from 20 to 80 years old, and then he got to play Emmett Dalton when I was a little boy. So that was kind of neat to play different movies with your son, right, where he got to act with you. But no, it was a great career, humbling and grateful, but everything has a lifespan, and I've moved on into mostly technology.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I just want to mention that real quick before we get off of here. But you're involved in, well, not only the Ray Bradbury Theater are you still doing stuff actively with that right now? That was on like HBO. Is that right?
Yeah, that was an award-winning television series that we filmed all over the world, but it played on HBO and not now. I don't know where it's syndicated now, if anywhere. And then, I went on to produce other things and bought the rights to Flipper and sold that, and Universal, and made a deal there, and bought the rights to the Dorothy Stratten Story, Death of a Playmate, and sold that, and bought the rights to Waco Colt. I was always kind of a horse trader. I buy and sell horses, and I'm pretty good at it, right? Yeah. And now I do the same thing with technology, and we have a company called UVC Science, and uvcscience.net is the website, and we're the only company in the world that have all the patents for being able to magnify a ray of UVC light to such a degree so that the radiance is so powerful that it'll kill any bacteria and mold or virus, whether it's COVID or anything else. And so we put that in HVAC systems, so all ingress and egress of airs, we sanitize the air coming in and out of a building or a hospital or your home or wherever. And then now UVC Science has gone on and developed another product that kills and cures cancer. And so they've taken which is unbelievable, but breast cancer and prostate cancer, they've tested with third party. You have to pay $150,000 or so every time you do a clinical test on this stuff, and or more. And so you can't just go and brag about it and be a marketeer. You have to be able to do that. So we've done that. And now we're negotiating as we speak. As I just got some text on it with a huge opportunity that would give my family, wealth, generational wealth. But if I'm so blessed by God, it'll be done. And if it doesn't, onward and upward. But as they always said in the Marine Corps, whatever you do, don't stay put, because you're going to get killed. Move forward, right?
Yeah.
So I'm moving forward.
Have you ever thought about just retiring?
No, that's not. My brain won't shut down. So, when my body shuts down, I suppose I'll retire. And I don't have any need to be a celebrity anymore. I mean, I enjoy giving people joy, and I'm humbled by it. Yeah. But all that youthful ego's gone and embarrassing, so I don't want to go there. And I look back at an acting career, I'm grateful, and there were some roles. I almost got to star in Miami Vice right after Chip. Oh, yeah. I'm glad you bring that up, because what happened on that, real quick? I think that's an interesting story. Well, I read that was in my heyday. I was considered one of the top actors in town, and they sent me to Universal to read for Miami Vice. And I said, yeah, I'll go read. And so I go to read, and Michael Mann was the producer, a famous producer. And he asked me to change my look. And so I greased my hair back, put a mustache on, and put some kind of black crap on my face. It looked stubby and ugly. And if you go to Larry Wilcox Miami Vice tests, there's 2 tests on YouTube. One is where I kind of look the same as I did on Chips, and then there's another where I'm a kind of a grease ball. And the one that's I like is the grease ball one. If someone wants to see the test, it's much different than Don Johnson. And so they had already read Don Johnson and all kinds of other actors, and they had passed on Don Johnson and everybody else, by the way. And so when I went in, they were like, forgive me for bragging, but blown away, right? And Universal called my agent and said, we just watched Larry Wilcox's tape in his interview, and he should have been a friggin' major star. I mean, what have you been doing with this actor? And so that was nice and complimentary. And so they said, hey, Larry, will you read with other actors? Because we want to find the other actor, Stubbs, or whatever his name was. The Stubbs going to be with you. Yeah, Tubbs, and that was his name, the other character. I said, yeah, okay. So I read with 50 actors and for Michael Mann and everyone, but they said, you have the role, and we're just finding the other guy. Well, the writer, I played this guy as a very serious, badass, grumpy, you don't want to be around this guy because he is going to kick your ass. And he's angry and mad, but deep down inside, he's soft, but his exterior is ugly and mean. And when he's around the females, he's a nice guy, and you start to see there's a little boy in him, but the badass is the way he's learned to survive as a cop, right? And so anyway, it's much different than Don Johnson. And the writer decided that he said to me, we'd really like to see more of kind of a different character with more humor. I'm looking at this jackass and say, dude, you just greased me up. You made me the ugliest dude in the world. You put this mustache on me. You want me to be a badass, and now you want more humor? I'm thinking he's going to ask me to play a giraffe in a minute, like dumb commercial directors do sometimes. Could you play a giraffe for when you read this? What?
Yeah.
And so to make a long story short, one day I'm going somewhere, and they tell me that, you can't believe this, Larry, but NBC says you're the best. Universal says you're the best actor, but they're going to hire Don Johnson. So I was devastated. I went, wow, okay. And it became a big popular series, and Don Johnson did a great job, and God bless him. He was a pretty boy, looked good in the pink jacket and white T-shirt and no socks. And, he was the Miami lounge lizard in the Ferrari, looked good, a ladies' man. So maybe that was the right direction to go. Who knows?
Right.
Obviously, that was successful. It must have been the right way.
Yeah, and I just want to mention this before we get off of here, but I think that the one guy that got the gun pulled on him, was it Danny Bonaducci from the Partridge Family?
Yeah, Danny Bonaducci and Brickska, the character, the tall kid.
He went by Bear, right?
Bear, yeah. Bricks, Bear pulled the gun. That's the only time.
Okay, very cool. Did you guys actually film that in the Central Division, actually there? Or was that really?
Yeah, we went downtown, in the Central Division, has 10 freeways above it. It's noisy as hell. It's in a grubby part of LA. You can't go a block without getting mugged, So it's not a good area to be filming. But we filmed down there for a long time, and then over time we replicated the interiors at MGM Studios, so we didn't have to go down there. And then as time went on, we probably only went there once a month. Not every week, like we used to. So it wasn't bad.
What was the reception from the other highway patrolmen, the actual guys that?
It was mixed. It was mixed because, we weren't real. We were fake in so many ways. They were doing jet skis and Hobie cats. Come on. Yeah. We were, and our hair was long, and come on, dude, you need a haircut, right? And they were kind of like quasi-military in their thinking, but we were young actors. There's nothing worse than when someone's marketing. First of all, marketing in itself is a way of learned lying. So how you obfuscate and choose words and so on, you're semi-liar, right? But when you start marketing yourself, you quickly learn what's palatable to the marketplace. So here we were marketing ourselves, and they wanted us to be like cops, but that wasn't as marketable. So Eric started tailoring his uniform so it was skin tight, and on and on and on. And we did different things that would boost our own egos and our own marketability. So I think in some cases they liked us, in some cases they didn't. But I'll tell you, almost all police officers, including and not limited to the CHP, almost all, 98% of them, like us now and say that we did so much for public relations in the police because the community outreach and the relationships that we had with people, we weren't beating people up, and we were just, motor cops and writing tickets and having a good time as buddies.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Larry, I can't thank you enough. Seriously, this has been an absolute dream. I never thought in my lifetime, I never thought, as a kid watching you every time that you were on TV, I was glued to the television set. They could have told me, hey, one day I'm going to get to talk to that guy. And I would have told them they were crazy. So I really do appreciate it. I know that a lot of my people that watch this, they're absolutely, man, I just can't thank you enough. I know your time is incredibly valuable. One final thing, your wife was an Olympian, and what was her sport? And the second part to that is, since the Olympics are coming to Los Angeles, does she have some involvement in that as far as coaching, or is she going to be involved in some way, shape, or form with that?
Yeah, her event was track and field, and she was a heptathlete, meaning she was a multi-eventer. She did 7 events: high jump, long jump, hurdles, 100-meter hurdles, 200 meters, 800 meters, javelin, shot put. So we had to do all those events. Decathlete does 10 events, heptathlete does 7. Really talented, American record holder at one time, and made the Olympic team out of high school. So that tells you there's a gifted genetically, right? But she's a coach now. She's both a world-class coach for Olympic athletes and under 20s and, up-and-coming world athletes, and also a high school coach at Thousand Oaks High School here in California. And, it's funny because I always tease her, you're blonde, blue-eyed, good-looking female going to basically an all-black sport with males and a few females too, obviously, and gifted athletes. Where are you going to sit? How are you going to do this? So, but she does well. She, all of the coaches and all the athletes are her friends and know her well and respect her. And she grew up with them as a competitor. So she's all their best friends. And she won 6 league championships in a row as a head coach. So, but she's manic about coaching and getting into kids' heads and making sure that they get scholarships when they're junior and senior to a Division I school, and going to Dartmouth and Yale and Harvard. And I mean, it's just unbelievable how much she's donated to these kids.
That's amazing. And one final question, I promise this is it.
That's all right.
Eric Estrada, on his badge number, it was B600. What was up with that? Why B600?
I don't know. I have no idea. I've never asked him that. And I remember he forgot and left his badge on my autograph table one day. And I was, is this your badge? Is B whatever? Yeah. What's it doing on your table? I was like, I think someone threw this shit away. I was teasing him, but I don't know. Sorry, I can't answer it.
No, that's all right. It was kind of interested me. Hey, listen, everybody. Thank you, Larry. Hang out for a quick minute after we get off of here, and I'll talk to you briefly, and then we'll be done. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Larry. An hour and a half almost of your time. I cannot thank you enough. I really. I don't know if you've ever seen us on TV, but it just what you guys did back then in the 70s. It was such a huge part of our culture. Really, it is. I mean, anybody plays that song and they know what it is. So, and I think that really, you said it yourself. You said something about the relationship with the public, and I think that you guys portrayed the California Highway Patrol in a way that you can go to any Walmart in this country, and if you look for the police cars in the toy section, they're likely going to have a California Highway Patrol car. And so I think that you probably definitely gave a level of respect. When people see a CHP car, people think of what you guys were doing back then. I don't know how they couldn't. So thank you again. Do you have any final anything lastly you want to say?
I want to say one last thing to the Tulsa Police Department, because Robert Pine and I did a personal appearance in Tulsa together. Robert Pine played Sergeant Guerrero on Chips. Yep. And these guys, all in their dress uniforms, come out to the airport, meet us. We get in a Suburban, right, a Tulsa Police Suburban. And I've never had a police escort before, so I was thinking, okay, it's kind of cool, kind of dorky, but the 2 Chips guys get a police escort. Oh, my God. These guys are so talented, so fast, so many motorcycles in and out of intersection, boom, boom, boom. It was literally scary. I mean, we were saying, this is kind of weird, man. This is awesome. So I say to the police department of Tulsa, Oklahoma, God bless you, and thank you so much. So impressive. I love you all.
Thank you, buddy. Next time you're in town, it's a standing thing. If you're ever back in Tulsa, if you ever wanted a personal tour, I will give you one of those. And if you ever needed a personal pickup from the airport, I'm there. Anytime I will be there, and I'll make sure that believe me, you'd have the time of your life. All right. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again. Next week, we're going to have Rick Salcido, retired detective, retired negotiator from the Orlando Police Department. And now he's working for the University of Central Florida in their sex crimes or special victims unit. The guy is awesome. I finally twisted his arm enough to get him on here, and he's going to come on here with another person by the name of Rachel, and we're going to talk about some true crime stuff. It'll be really interesting. So tune in next week, 7 p.m. on Friday. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you all very much. You know, I don't make any money to do this, but I try to bring epic guests like this guy right here. Larry is that type of a guest, and I really appreciate him, and I appreciate all of you, because without you coming on to the show, we don't have a show. So, and it's not going to be fun for him or me. So thank you again. Everybody, tune in next week. Like and subscribe. Go to my YouTube page and check this out. Appreciate you. Take us out, Amanda.